distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies.
Hello, welcome back to Make It Plain. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe. It has been a while. I just jumped back on for the next few weeks to do a special edition of Make It Plain. This is going to be in honor of Malcolm X. As you know, Make It Plain, that comes from Malcolm. One of the most important contributions Malcolm can give us is the idea that we should make it plain, make it simple, make it to the point, make it clear. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that happened to me in the media the other day around that very thing, and some comments I made that got picked up by the press. It happens sometimes. But for this, what I really wanted to do, because Malcolm's 100th birthday this year, as you may know, if you follow me, you will see that I've written a book, Nobody Can Give You Freedom, The Real Mission of Malcolm X. And that is to mark 100 years of Malcolm and to put Malcolm forward as the most important intellectual on racial justice that we have in the 20th century. And so even though Malcolm passed away, died 60 years ago, his leaves a body of work that is so coherent that you can actually say, look, from Malcolm's body of work, this is really what he'd say about things today, right? And so when he made the book, also made a documentary, which hopefully you've seen. Please do watch. The link is in the description down at the bottom. The film is also called Nobody Can Give You Freedom, and it involves me starting in Birmingham, going to Smethwick. I talked to my parents, Morris Andrews and Carol Andrews, to get the British black power. Why do I know about Malcolm? Why is Malcolm so important to me intellectually, politically, philosophically, personally, all the things? So I talked to both my parents, which may be the highlight of the film. Also go down to London to the London School of Economics, which is one of the last places Malcolm gave. I think it may have been his last, definitely one of his last international speeches, just 11 days before he died. We actually filmed in the old theatre where he was, spoke to George the poet, spoke to Dr. Olivia Ruta-Zibwa, who works down there, and then went over to New York, went to Harlem, traveled, took the kids. That was an expensive trip, I'm not gonna lie, but took the kids over to Harlem, spent a week there, went to what was the Audubon Ballroom, which where Malcolm was killed, which is now the Malcolm X and Dr. Ilyasah Shabazz Memorial Center, Memorial and Education Center, which is all the way north up in Harlem, and was lucky enough to be able to interview Dr. Ilyasah Shabazz, who was Malcolm's third daughter. Also had a great interview with Dr. Jared Ball. Went to an event. We actually timed it. My eldest son, who helps out with the podcast, Toph Kadiri, his birthday is the same day that Malcolm was assassinated. So that's part of the reason why I had to take all the kids down to New York, because I couldn't go by myself when it's his birthday. But on that day, 60th anniversary of his death, they had a big event there, a big gala event. So we managed to film that. Spoke to Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, Ben Crump briefly about the family's actually suing the CIA, FBI, New York City Police Department because of their involvement in this killing, and they want to get all the release, the Secret Service documents, all the CIA, FBI stuff, want to get that released. And so, put that in the film and then came back, spoke to Sace Holmes Lewis, who works at Mentivity, spoke to a group of young people in Birmingham as well. And really the whole point of the documentary, which again, you can watch, it's free, put it up there. We just got some money from the Book in America. I said, let's make a doc, let's put it out there, let the people watch it. So please do click watch. We toured it around England for a bit. Feedback is really good. So please do it. Check it out. I would love to see what you think. And so the doc's out, book's out, Malcolm, most important intellectual of the 20th century. And so when we did those interviews obviously are much longer than, so in the actual film, trying to cut it down, the film was about an hour 20. I had to just cut out little bits of the film, cut out little bits of the interviews for the film. So what I did say we would do is that we would run the whole interviews. So interview my parents, interview Dr. Shabazz, interview George the poet. We're going to run all of those interviews basically. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to run the interview. I'm going to do a little intro that says what Malcolm saying about what's happening in the world today, and then play the interview. This week, we are going to start with Dr. Ilyasah Shabazz. I thought best start with the daughter, start with the family. We're lucky enough to get down and speak to her. And so she does feature in the doc, but we're going to show the whole. So after this, after I give you this little intro, we're going to play that interview so you get the full context. Because as someone who's involved in media and done documentaries on the other side, so I never made a documentary, but I've been in documentaries. You know, you do this whole interview, you speak for like sometimes an hour, it can be long, you say all these things, and then you just cut. You have to cut little bits out. You're like, oh, you're in it for like 2 minutes, right? And so in the film, I tried to put as much as possible in about people there, but obviously you can't put everything in. So you get the full interview, you get the full context and everything. But yeah, do check out the movie. Nobody Can Give You Freedom. Do check out the book, obviously. Hopefully these interviews will be helpful as well to get the whole full context. And the whole purpose of all of this really is it's not. And I stress this because I've been talking. Book came out a couple of weeks ago. I've been going around doing lots of events, talking to lots of different people, and every single one I have to stress. Look, I love Malcolm. I have absolutely no idea what Malcolm, if he was actually alive, like Malcolm. Let's say Malcolm hadn't been killed. Malcolm gets to 100 years old. I have no idea what he'd say about like what he'd actually say now. Who knows? God knows. The truth is, people change, isn't it? And because Malcolm was assassinated, he's kind of frozen in this kind of uncompromising revolutionary stance. Who knows what happens if that? Who knows what happens if that hadn't been the case? So this is when I say what will Malcolm say. Also, I say, look, Malcolm was a person. I have to stress this. Also, Malcolm was a person. As much as I love Malcolm, I love Malcolm's work. Like I can't tell you about Malcolm the person. The book is not a biography of Malcolm X. The film is not a biographical film of Malcolm X. What it is very much, it is a body of work. So we don't take our people that seriously. We don't think they can have bodies of work, right? So the same way you got Marxists out there. Marx did a long time. And people they still call themselves Marxists, right? They still say there's a body of work, there's a framework we can use to understand the world. That's what I'm saying with Malcolm. And that's what we have to do. And really, this for Malcolm represents the black radicalism. And I'm not saying black radical tradition. Ask me a question about that another time, because that's a whole nother rant. But black radicalism, there's a politics of black radicalism. There's an analysis and there is a solution. And that goes back years. So Malcolm's parents are both Garveyites. He's heavily influenced by the Garvey movement, heavily influenced by revolutionary Pan-Africanism, heavily influenced by all these things that go before him, right? And so why I love Malcolm is because Malcolm understands, represents that politics in the best way form, gives us the framework for it in a way that no one else does. For honest, no one else does. Right? And so that's what the whole book is about. And that's when I say, what would Malcolm say? That's what I mean. I joke in the book. Had Malcolm been alive, had Malcolm survived, God, he might have sold out, left Betty for a white woman, turned Republican. How do I know? I don't know. Nobody knows what anybody would do in any given situation. But what I can say, there is a body of work, a framework of both analysis and solution that you can see with Malcolm. You can say, Malcolm would say this about this, this says this about this, this is what we should do. And because the key thing that Malcolm gives us is a solution, right? It says, look, there's a revolutionary solution. And what I'm really trying to get all of you to do and think about with this work is this is what the analysis is. This is what the solution is. And the solution is simple. Organize. Collect it. Malcolm, when he dies, he starts Organization Afro-American Unity, and he's trying to unify all those people in the diaspora. When he says Afro-American, you don't mean Afro-American like America, United States of America. It says any Afro-American, any black person who's not in Africa, basically, who's in Latin America, who's in the Caribbean, moved to Europe, that's us, right? We're all Afro-American. We're all part of this big diaspora, and then connect that diaspora to the continent. And that's how you get freedom. That's how we get freedom. Organize, collect. That's what Black Power should be about. That's what Pan-Africanism should be about. Organize all of us together. So we've started around the Organization of Black Unity. That's the organization that funds this podcast, funds Make It Plain. This is Make It Plain is the wing of Harambee Organization of Black Unity. We're having a convention of African people in Gambia next year. The idea again to bring us together, and we're putting it on the continent because we want to bring the continent in with us and connect. As Malcolm says, Africa will go no further than we will, and we will go no further than Africa will. So there's a blueprint that's left there that comes from his analysis. And so that's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get you to join. So please do, you will see in the description for this, Convention of African People, link, find out to get involved. Next April the 18th and 19th, 2026. You will see Harambee Organization of Black Unity. Please do join. You will see links to subscribe to Make It Plain. This stuff costs money. Like all of this stuff is very expensive, and we need support. And if you want to be an ally, guess what you do? You support. push the link. It says subscribe, it says donate, support. That's what allyship looks like. We've got work to do. If you want to support materially, that will be great for us, right? So that's all the background. That's kind of the background to the whole Malcolm X thing. What we do for Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Why Malcolm? Why Malcolm? Malcolm is the fundamental intellectual behind Harambe Organization Black Unity, and also obviously behind Make It Plain. And what we're going to do over the next few weeks, series of what will Malcolm say about what's going on today. All right, now I've been off for a bit. I have not been podcasting for a bit, and I really missed it. Not gonna lie, like so many things jumped up. Where I was like, wow, that is, you got just there's so many comments to be made about so many things. So I guess I'll use the first one just as a bit of a catch up. Just because so much things are happening. The world has gone upside down, but actually in a very real way, kind of predictably upside down too. Right? So one of the actually, let me do before I get into that. Let me just I was in the newspaper the other day because I was at the Hay Festival. Hay Festival is a very, very white festival, like whiter than white. They're trying to get more. It's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't help. It's just over the border into Wales. If people are listening from other parts of the world, Wales it's in the middle of nowhere basically. So deeply middle class environment. So the audience is very, 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 very different, I have to say, to my typical audience and go around talking about the book, talking about Malcolm, etc. But it was good. I mean, the experience is all right. But, always enjoy talking about Malcolm to anybody, right? It does tell you it kind of translates. But I didn't even realize, we were just having this conversation back and forth about me and Connor, who hosted the event. We were having this conversation back and forth. And then the bit that got picked up for the Times and Telegraph was my comments when I said academic, something about me. I think I said something like academic books are a con, right? Because it's all jargon, it's all, you get lost in the source. There's lots and lots of nonsensical words for no reason, overly complicated. And that's the bit that got picked up in the paper, which is actually true. Like, right, that 100% actually in the book, there's this whole criticism of academia because of this way that we communicate, right? The way that and I say we is difficult for me to say because I don't feel part of it. I mean, I am a professor. Actually, in the book, I talk about this a lot, right? I am a professor. I get paid a decent wage. That's how I make most of my money. That's why I have the freedom to do the things that I do, right? Do this, do whatever. Most of the time I can do largely what I like, right? And that's a bonus. But also what that does and what that industry does is it stifles us in a real way. So I said multiple times, and wrote this in the book too, that if Malcolm was alive today, I said deeply intellectual, one of the things that changed, the only real thing that's changed between now and then when Malcolm died, is that the system opened up enough for us to be in it. And Malcolm talks about this. He calls this token integration. So the fact that I can sit here as right now talking as professor of Black Studies, that's token integration. That's great for me. Don't do nothing for you. Don't do nothing for you. In fact, when I got promoted to professor, we actually had Black Studies students. They were celebrating. I had to give them a 3-hour lecture about why they should not be celebrating I became professor of Black Studies because it don't do nothing for them. That means I get paid more. Good for me, right? Great. Token integration. A few tokens getting in don't do nothing for any of us, right? In fact, I'm only one of 160 Black professors in the whole country, full professors in the whole country, which is really, really small. Like, it's really tough. In the UK, when it's token, it's properly token. Like, there's just like the one or two of us. Maybe there's like 2 Black professors, 3 in the whole my university. Maybe, I don't know. That's how bad it is, right? And so if Malcolm was alive today, though, he would have been able to take the benefits of that token integration, and maybe he would be a professor, right? Has the intellect, has the smarts, has the way, would have written books, etc., etc. But he wouldn't have been Malcolm X, right? Because it would have completely. Malcolm's Malcolm because he's on the grassroots, because he's talking to people, like just normal people, like he's going around community talking, building the Nation of Islam, going around doing speeches, going around talking to this people, that people. The audience for Malcolm is us, the masses of people, which means he has to make it plain, has to be understandable, has to talk in a way that people can understand. And that makes better knowledge because it's then tested by the people. If you're talking about blackness, if you're talking about like racial justice, if you're talking about overcoming police brutality, and you're just talking to white academics in academia, when you ain't talking to nobody, you're not talking to nobody. You are wasting your time. That is a masturbating exercise. There's no purpose in that at all. You're only going to produce bad knowledge. You can't understand a concept like blackness separate from the people which blackness is about. Yet, there are multiple books, and I ain't going to go rant on them now, but there are multiple books that talk about blackness without actually talking, which could not be discussed in black communities because of the way they are written. And it's not, and this is an important thing to say here, it's not that they are so complicated, they're so deep that they're just above the average intellect. Every concept in these books is perfectly simple. They're just explained in flowery, overly complicated language. And the reason for that, to do that, is to make it elite, is to cut people off. The only reason you do that is to cut people off. There's no other reason. There's just no other reason. There's nothing in any of these books you couldn't understand. The purpose is to make us look better, right? That gives us, I get my cachet because you can't understand me, right? That's what makes me professor, because you can't understand me. Well, what does you think that makes what does that do to the knowledge that's being produced, right? It can't be good. It can only be bad. So there are many, many, many terrible books by black authors, by black academics. They're good. No, by the way, there are many great books by black academics. I'm not saying there's not good books either. There's good work by black academics. Obviously, I'm a black academic. I know lots of black academics. There's some really, really good work. But even, I will say, even some of the good work, because of what academia does to us, we still have to put it in these terms, and it devalues the work. Like, there's good work that I can say, like, there's some good insights in there, but you can't like, I've got to translate it to people to explain it, and that shouldn't be the case, right? We should be thinking, what do we do? Who is it for? Is it for the masses of us? Is it for us, or is it for them? And it really is us and them. Academia, the elite, we call it ivory tower for a reason. It is white, heavily white, right? Disproportionately white. It is based on white values. So all of the major disciplines, sociology, history, economics, deeply racist ideas in all of them. Deeply racist people as a founder of all of them. That's the standard that we're trying to fit into, right? The very notion of what the university is, this elite space where you have to be intelligent to do. What does intelligence mean? Now, don't get me wrong. You need intelligence. You need intellect. Malcolm, probably the most intelligent person I've ever heard talk. But you can understand him, right? Like, you can understand him. Black Panther Party, same way. Claudia Jones, same way. Intellectuals, that's intellectual. Intellectual and flowery, over elaborate language are two different things. They're not the same thing, right? And I'll be honest, a lot of this stuff, when you actually read it in academia, it don't make no sense. It actually don't make no sense. It's actually just bad. Like, I'm like, I read it and go, actually, that's just stupid. Like, that's actually, it's a bad argument. But you dressed it up and wrapped it up in all this language to make it, to obscure the fact you're talking nonsense. Right? You know what I'm saying? Actual dumb nonsense. And somehow that's what gets revealed, right? So so this is part of the reason why I do the podcast, part of the reason why I spend a lot of time outside the universities, because it really is a different world. Like, it's so hard to explain. It's a different world. And it's it's a different world. It's a different world. So if you, this is a whole debate in the book, but pick up the book. In the book, I actually say that there is, when I say recovering, somebody asked me about this the other day, recovering academic, because I am still technically an academic, right? I get paid by the university, but I'm trying to slap myself out of those ways of thinking, because it does damage to us, right? Like, if you imagine I did a PhD I did universities 3 years, I did a master's 4 years, PhDs 3 years, then you go into trying to get promoted. I've been doing this for 15, 16, 17, 2000. I started university in 2001. No, yeah, 2001. I started university in 2002. So that's 23 years of being in academia. And it damages you. It literally changes the way you think. Reading all this stuff, having to articulate in a particular way, you're trained into writing. As my friend Erica Brand says from Brokey's podcast, the discipline disciplines you. It really does. So it actually changes the way you think. All right, so there's a bit in the book where I say that a very well-known academic, black academic, probably the most famous black British academic, writes like he has a brain injury. And people think I'm being cruel. It's not actually cruel. I'm genuinely serious. Like, I'm genuinely serious. This does damage to the way that we communicate. And we actually, if you stick in it too long, you actually stop being able to communicate. Like, it becomes just the way that it fundamentally changes how you are. And to always say, people don't change institutions. Institutions change people. This is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous lesson. So, yeah, I will give a free book. Anybody no, I don't. It's hard for me to say if you haven't read the book. You read the book, you're going to know it already. But if you haven't read the book and you can tell me who the academic is you think I said had a brain injury, I will send you a Rice Lake has a brain injury. I will send you a free copy of Nobody Can Give You Freedom. But it's not honestly. Somebody's just like this is invoking Malcolm. Malcolm loved to do this. Malcolm would always come hard for people with dangerous ideas. And someone asked me again the other day, if we're looking for unity, should we be nicer to people? Should we not quite be as harsh and as quiet? But you know what? Sometimes you just have to make it plain how bad things are and how bad other arguments are, right? Like unity doesn't necessarily mean all coming together and being happy and being friends. Unity can mean cussing you out and saying, nah, I'm not gonna work. That just don't make no sense, right? And having to do that. And that's what those kind of analogies are about, right? Saying, nah, this ain't gonna run. Like we can't do it like that. We have to do something different. So you're never gonna be apologized for being cutting about something. Because sometimes you need to cut deep, right? You do. That's how it goes. You need to cut deep. It needs to be uncomfortable. One of the things that Malcolm would say today is, wow, we really stopped being uncomfortable, right? When did we think that being uncomfortable was a bad thing? Being uncomfortable is a good thing. You need to be uncomfortable. Malcolm told us, like, when if you're sitting on a warm stove, you ain't gonna jump up. You're gonna be toasty. Like, oh yeah, it's all right. You're getting cooked on this warm stove, but because it's warm, you don't think nothing about it. It's only when the stove's hot, it's burning you. You're gonna jump up. And that's it, uncomfortable. We need the politics of uncomfortability is a big one for us, I would say. Because we've just got used to saying, no, let's just all be friends. Let's just all have unity. Unity is a good thing. Obviously, you start an organization called Harambe Organization of Black Unity. You want people to be in it. You want people to join it. You want people to be part of it. But that don't mean you just accept anything. That's unity around ideology, around aims, around politics. And to do that, you have to put some boundaries and say, look, that's not going to run. Right? We had a whole conversation the other day about book club. We had a book club. If you're in Birmingham, do come down to the book club. Last Friday every month at the Marcus Garvey Centre, the Nicole Andrews Community Library in Handsworth. I'll put a link for that in the description as well. So please do come down if you're in the area. And we're talking about. I asked the question: would we let Kemi Badenoch, Conservative Party leader, first Black Prime Minister of the UK, I promise you, in a few years, and David Lammy, Labour Party MP, will we let them join the organisation? And I was like, well, look, it's not really a question because the organisation, any black person can join. There is no political criteria to join. Technically, it's just open to everybody. And that caused the whole Kemi Badenoch's deeply problematic, right? Like deeply problematic. And so would you want her to join? And would you want that class of people to be part of the movement? Because they're not going to get it. Like they're going to want to do things which aren't even not just not radical, actually bad for black people. And so one of the only ways you actually prevent that is by being really, 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 really clear with the critique, right? Is by making plain that people like Kemi Badenoch, you lost, man. Like you gone, like that's some coon show business that we don't want no part of. And then she ain't gonna think about joining, right? It's actually being rhetorically clear is really, 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 really important in that regard. I think because you want to bring everybody along, but you also want to make sure we're on the same page. So if we're not on the same page, then what's the point? All right. So much of the problem that we have as black people, and if Malcolm said, they said the same thing. Like there's a quote Malcolm says where he says, "This world revolution has been misused," and that was 60 odd years ago. Imagine now, everything's revolution. This is revolution. Black Lives Matter revolution. It's not revolution. It's not. Revolution is when you want to end the political and economic system, overturning the current political and economic system. Trying to make that system better is not revolution. It's that simple. There are very few revolutionary arguments, ideas, platforms. And that's okay. You might not want revolution. That's fine. But when we call everything revolution, we really, really, really miss the point. So that's one of the things that I was talking about in the media last week was George Floyd. This is 5 years since the murder of George Floyd. 5 years since Derek Chauvin, people watched him being choked live, right? We're not live, but watched the video of it and saw it happen. 5 years since we had this massive erosion, massive explosion of, we're going to change, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, doing that. 5 years later, where are we? We're in a worse place then than we were 6 years ago. And if you need someone to understand that, I promise you it's Malcolm. Malcolm told you the map would have predicted that clean. And why? Why is that? It's because, look, as Malcolm told us, this system can no more provide freedom, justice, and equality for black people than a chicken can lay a duck egg. So if we are expecting this system to provide justice for George Floyd, we lost our minds. That is not how this works. This cannot possibly. There is no justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michelle Cusseau, Kingsley Burrell in England, anybody. There's no justice for them in the system. It's not possible. It's literally they're asking to do the wrong thing. So when we had those big protests and Black Lives Matter, there's lots of powerful things, but we have to be clear about what the politics of that is. If you're talking about reform, if you're talking about trying to get police body cameras, if you're talking about talking to your representatives, you're talking about working with the president. Well, Black Lives Matter goes back further to like 2013 when they were trying to work with the White House Negro Obama. That's not going to deliver justice. It's just not. Like, these might be good things to do. It is good if you can reduce police violence. That is a good thing, but that is not enough. It's not revolution. And so what happened is very, very predictable. Big, but everybody's upset. All these madness. Yeah, we're gonna do this. All these white companies, black squares, Kente Clough. We're gonna change. And none of that was real. Like, none of that was real. That's the worst form of token integration, where they're literally just giving you nothing. What Malcolm said, token is a substitute for the real thing. Now, what more was that than 5 years ago when you had the substitute for the real thing? The best thing that really happened was a few people got book deals. That's probably about it. Maybe TV's a bit more diverse now. Maybe that's about it. I can't think of anything seriously, genuinely that happened in the last 5 years. And then the other thing that happened, which again, entirely predictable. I think I said it at the time. Talking about race. When you put race on the agenda, that's not always a good thing, because there are so many bad ways to talk about race. Ku Klux Klan love talking about race. They talk about race all the time, just not the way that you would want them to, right? And that's what happened. It's massive backlash. It's quite probable that without the Black Lives Matter summer, Trump don't come back, right? That Black Lives Matter summer put race so firmly on the agenda. You had this massive backlash. Oh, it's too much. Oh, white people are the people who are really being hurt. Oh, we're gonna have to get rid of critical race theory, etc. The backlash. This huge backlash, which in many ways probably does lead to Trump, right? So it's, again, if you listen to Malcolm at the time, this has been very, 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 very clear. I was a bit surprised, I think, about the quickness of the backlash, because the backlash was swift. I mean, in the UK, we had the sewage report straight away saying, "Oh, racism doesn't exist. That's an American problem." And America is really swift as well. And just this swift backlash, and now we are where we are here. But with Trump, I mean, Trump's back. Trump 2.0. Who would have predicted that? After, I mean, it was bad enough with all the COVID stuff. You'd think after that COVID bungling, which was bizarre, dangerous, and also rather comical. You know, we're gonna get people to shine lights into people to kill COVID. I mean, that's I don't know. That is psychosis of whiteness is how you explain that one. Like, how do you elect that man again? You have to be literally, and psychosis of whiteness, that actually was like a metaphor. But now I'm thinking, no, maybe people actually just have mental illnesses, and that's why they're voting for Trump. Because I don't understand that one. But then you have the January 6th and all that. It's kind of I mean, I'm not surprised, but it should be shocking that he could get elected. But that's what happens when you have a system like this. Can no more provide freedom, justice, and equality than chicken can lay a duck egg. Just not meant to do it. So you're always going to have these reversions, right? So you shouldn't be surprised that Trump's in power. And the other thing, and it's, I think, more important that where we are now, Malcolm would say today, other than Malcolm would just say, "I told you so." I mean, this would be the big thing for Malcolm. I told you so. 60 years ago, I told you that if we went down this route, civil rights, trying to get good jobs, trying to get into the system, trying to get black presidents, trying to get that, you're going to end up in a worse position now than you were then. He told us that then. And he'd definitely be saying, "I told you so" today. This will be it. I told you so. That's the message of this week is, "I told you so." But the biggest thing he'd say around Trump is actually, we're getting all upset about Trump. And we should. Look, man, the deportation things, the way he's going to get critical race theory and black intellectual thought, it's all terrible. Don't get me wrong. Man's terrible. Same way when we had conservatives over here and their terrible immigration policy, sending people over to Rwanda, all the stop the small boats rhetoric, etc. Terrible. But Malcolm would have said, "Look, Trump, Tories over here, that's the wolf. The wolf who bares their teeth and they know, but you know they're going to eat you. They're growling at you. They're hungry for you. They're like, yeah, we're going to get you, right? And you know they're coming. That's the wolf. But Malcolm always preferred the wolf because at least, he said, at least you know where you stand when you have the wolf. And that's the wolf. The wolf, that's Trump. The wolf, that's Kemi, the wolf, actually, strangely enough. Wolf in sheep's clothing? I don't know what you call that. But anyway, from Nigel Farage over here, that's the wolf. You know them. And Malcolm preferred them because guess what happens? When you have the wolf, everybody gets upset. Everybody's like, oh yeah, we need to change. We're going to do this and that. We get a bit riled up. But he said more dangerous than the wolf is the fox, right? The fox, they come at you, they show you their teeth, but they pretend they're smiling. They're smiling at you. Hey, yeah, come here, come in. They're luring you into their den. That's their liberals. They're still going to eat you. Either way, you end up in the doghouse. But one time, you resist and you run away. The other time, you're just walking happily, handily in, then you get eaten for your dinner. But either way, you end up in the doghouse. And this is the big warning Malcolm will give us today. Trump is not the problem. Farage is not the problem. The rise of the right in Europe is not the problem. They're the symptoms of a bigger problem. You get rid of Trump, you get rid of Farage, you get rid of the right, you're still left with a system that can no more provide freedom, justice, and equality than a chicken can lay a duck egg. So we were busy all the energy of anti-this, anti-that, anti-Trump, anti-that. We're missing the point. The point is the system itself. Think about the UK. We got rid of them. We got rid of the wolves. Right? We got rid of the Tories coming out with the nonsense, spewing their stuff. And we got a Labour Party. Friendly, Malcolm called benevolent Labour Party. Hey, this is bad. They just the same. they ain't take back no conservative policies. They ain't rolled nothing back. It's the same. I saw Keir Starmer. Keir just sounds like a Nazi. Doesn't it sound like I always felt this. Doesn't Keir just sound like, if you're gonna say pick a Nazi name, someone called Keir, I wouldn't trust them personally. But anyway, that aside, his immigration policy, they ain't really that much different than the Tories. They're coming out and saying we need to stop the small boats, we need to stop immigration, we need to da-da-da-da, we need to blah-blah-blah. It's the same thing. Ain't not one thing going to get better for us under Labour as it was under Tories. At least under the Tories, though, we were angry about it. At least under the Tories, though, we resist that. You know? Same thing in America. You had the White House Negro, Obama. People forget, Black Lives Matter started under Obama. Trayvon Martin, 2013. 2013. No, 2012. That was the killing that started Black Lives Matter. Then Ferguson, Eric Garner in New York. That actually started with a black president. He comes on TV smiling, charming, nothing got better because we're still in the same situation, right? Every indicator for black people got worse under Obama, apart from one. The employment rate went a little bit up for black people, but food stamp usage went up by 111%. I think 111% because we were getting jobs that don't pay. Great. Thank you for getting black people jobs that don't pay good wages. Hey, we shall overcome. Come on now. So the lesson here, because I had a number of journalists get in touch about, Malcolm X and Trump 2.0, Trump isn't the problem. Trump is bad. Trump. Don't get me wrong. I am no pro-Trump, but I have said this before, and I say it again. Trump might be the best president for Black America. And no, that is not an endorsement of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not good for us in any way, shape, or form, other than one. He puts you on the hot stove. He shows his teeth in a growl, and you know he's the enemy. And when you got the enemy in front of you, you're far more likely to resist. Rather than being lured into Kamala won. Harris is president. Black woman first. Imagine the opposite. First black female president. Let's give her a chance. It's the same thing. America is anti-you. It's always going to be anti-us. No matter who's the head of it, it's going to be anti-us because it's a system, not a person. And so at least with Trump, right? At least with Trump, you understood. You clear. We clear on where we're at. And this is the big thing that's changed since Malcolm died. Only really one thing has changed, I'd say. Obviously lots of things changed in 60 years. But the big thing that's changed is that we feel part of this thing. Malcolm was alive back in the day. He said, look, you're not an American. I'm not an American. I'm not part of this. I'm outside. And we were outside. In the 60s, in America, you didn't have a Civil Rights Act. That's later. The Voting Rights Act is later. Affirmative action is later. All that stuff happens, right? And that but before we were outside, then we were inside. That opened enough so we're in a bit. We can get in. We can get up. Same in the UK. Until my dad came over here in 1961. My mom was born in 48. At that point, you could perfectly clear. It was perfectly fine to racially discriminate against black people. No laws saying you couldn't do it. We didn't have, the UK doesn't have like Jim Crow, segregation, all those firm laws. Doesn't even have a constitution, so there's no racism in the constitution because there is no constitution. But we were in the colony, so they didn't need it. But when we came over here, we find that there's no protections, and those protections don't come until 65. 68 really, around housing and employment, etc. Those things start to change, so we start to get a bit in, right? University, go back to university. I'm an academic. 1960 in the UK, just like what? Just white people, like 5% of the population, just white men, mostly white men, were universities. I wasn't going to university. My dad wasn't going to university. That would, if I was alive then, I ain't becoming. Just I'm going to be in the university, let alone professor. So what do they do in the 80s? And in the UK, in the 80s, we have these big rebellions because you've got young black people in the country saying, "Look, we demand respect and recognition in a place." Burning, looting, saying, "No, we're not taking this." So what do? Open it up a bit. Say, yo, come into universities. We have massification of higher education, 1992. Come into university. Come in. Get the illusion. You can get a good job. You can be fine. You can be in the system. Da, 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 da. Part of my role as a professor, that's why I don't like the role, don't like the title. Part of my role as a professor is to pacify young people, especially now with debt. Student, we load some debt onto you, make you think you're going to make it in this devilish society. Load you up with debt. So actually, in the book, I talk about like my role as a professor is partly like a slave preacher, right? That's the role of the professor, slave preacher. What was the point of the slave preacher? It was to go in, pacify the enslaved. What was the role of the slave preacher? It was to go around pacify the enslaved. That's what we do as a professor. We pacify young people. That's the whole point. But the slave preacher also had these flexibility to read, to travel, to do other things. And this is why many times slave preachers are the ones who start the revolution, the rebellion on the plantation. So we have the opportunity, but the problem is, go back to what I said at the start, we get disciplined and trained into doing things we shouldn't do. And this is what happens when you get into the system. You get a mortgage, you get job, you depend on the income. It changes you, right? Makes you think this is the only thing, makes you brainwash you into believing this is the only way it can be. That what is it? Malcolm took house Negro, field Negro. And over the intros, we'll get into this much more. I've been going on for too long. I did not mean to speak for this long. Just, once you get on a roll, you get on a roll. But, the house Negro, field Negro, the house Negro is the person who's in the house. Where can I get a better house than this? Where can I get better clothes than this? Where can I get better food than this? Run away, you crazy. That's what Malcolm says. Then you go to the saying, why are we going to run away, you crazy? And this is what's been done to us because we got in. Not just here, in the Caribbean, and my family's from, in so-called independence, right? African countries, so-called independence. And we think we're in it. Where can we get it? What's a better system than capitalism? Where are we going to have food if we can't eat with capitalism? What's it going to get better than this? This is what it is, right? And that's the mentality we have to end immediately. Mark, I told you so. This is what's going to happen. You do the things that we did 6 years ago. You go down that route of trying to reform a system that's always going to be against you. And all you're going to end up with is total integration and the same problems you had before. And we have bigger problems now, mass incarceration, etc. But the biggest problem we have is that we have stopped thinking there's an alternative. We have all, in the West at least, and some of us in the South, have become in the house, accustomed to this, even though we're at the bottom of it, even though we're getting the harsh end of it. We're like, where can we get better studies? Where can we get a better life than this? Maybe America's the best country in the world. Britain's the best country in the world. That's some brainwashing. So really importantly, what we need is a political re-education. That's what Malcolm talks about. A need for a political re-education to open our people's minds to the truth. And that truth is that as long as we remain wedded in this system, just like with the plantation, you can want reforms on the plantation all you want. It's still a plantation. well, this system, you can reform it all you like. It's still a wicked system. It's against you. And so the whole point of this work, the book work, the film work, we're going to do 6 weeks of what Malcolm said. At least might just run it for the whole year. What Malcolm say is open people's eyes, right? One of my favorite Malcolm quotes, he says that his biggest mistake was trying to organize a sleeping people. We got to wake up because this is already too late. As I'm dropping all the quotes down, it's already too late. So I'm going to invite you to engage. Please do watch the film. Please do get the book. Please do. But don't just do it at the entertainment. Don't just do it because, oh, that's interesting. There's work to do. We are building a Harambee Organization of Black Unity to try and carry on OAAU, Malcolm's political legacy, the blueprint. We want to carry that on. Please do join that organization. Having a convention for African people in Gambia in 2026, April the 18th to the 19th. Again, trying to connect the diaspora. That's the important work that Malcolm was doing. To internationalize the struggle, bring us all together. That's key. Please do get involved, tap in. There's going to be meetings online, etc., to build up for that. That link's down there too. Please do contribute to Make It Plain. Get involved. Make It Plain is a place we're trying to really establish different ways of thinking, political education. Also, we're going to soon launch the Black United Front. So if you have a Black-led organization, any Black-led organization, we're going to list it in a directory around the world so we can connect in, tap into each other. Connect, right? That's the first step. Connect. Then let's work out where we're going together. You know, that's the thing. Malcolm would say two things. He'd say, I told you so. You think it's gonna get better, it ain't gonna get better, you're gonna be back in square one where you were before. That's where you're gonna be back. I told you so. But he'd also say, because the revolutionaries and Malcolm always the most optimistic, would say we got work to do. Yeah, it's already too late to moan about it. Let's pick it up, let's keep going. Let's build the work that needs to be done. And this is what we're trying to do. So I told you so, and let's get to work. That's the message of Malcolm X. So, like I said, we made this film. Nobody give you freedom. Please do watch. Hopefully you enjoy. Please do leave feedback, etc. We're going to be doing all the interviews, so you get a much bigger depth of what we discussed. We're going to start with Malcolm's third daughter, Dr. Ilyasah Shabazz. We spoke at the the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial Education Center in Harlem. I'd recommend a trip up there. It's a really spectacular space to go and see. Me and Ilyasah spoke mostly about, was Malcolm the man, beyond the myth, beyond the myths of Malcolm. Like, what was he like as a man? What was he like as a father? And it was just being in that space was itself powerful. I mean, literally the space Malcolm was killed 60 years ago, which obviously just means a lot. But it was a really good opportunity to have that conversation with someone with a direct connection, direct link. So please do stay tuned, watch the video after the break. There will be that full interview. And thank you again. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tapping in. Please do watch the film, grab a copy of the book, and tune in every week. We'll be doing What Would Malcolm Say If He Were Still Alive Today. All right. So thank you so much for giving us your time, and also for the space, which is absolutely beautiful. But it is also the space that your father was killed, and you were here as well. So I wonder, what is that emotionally like to just be here in the space all the time? How does that?
So this is the last space that I shared with my mother before she passed away.
As well. Okay.
And there's something really beautiful, the spirit, something really beautiful here.
Yeah.
And she had looked forward to retiring and continuing the safeguard and appropriation of her husband's legacy. Yeah. And, I often share that she didn't do this so that her husband, the legacy would be illuminated as much as it benefiting future generations, right? The work that my father did, significant contribution to one's sense of humanity. Yeah. So, I'm the chairperson of the board here, and I love it, just as my mother did.
Okay.
She took a place that represented tragedy and turned it into a place of triumph. Yeah. And not for herself, but for others. And that, speaks to the values, the ethical values of my mother.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's overlooked when we think about Malcolm is Dr. Betty Shabazz, right? Really important figure in her own right, and it's really good that you've commemorated her too in this place as well. What did your mother mean to you growing up?
My mother meant everything to me. My mother, I remember being about 4 years old and just looking at her and thinking, oh my God, my mom, she's beautiful, she's God, she's goddess, I always just thought so highly of her. She was brilliant, she was compassionate, she was loving, she was humorous. She was so many things, she was kind, gracious.
Yeah. And I've actually heard you speak before on different podcasts about growing up with the memories that your mother gave you of Malcolm the man. Because one of the myths, with the documentary, is about trying to get through some of the myths. And when we think about someone like Malcolm, it's this angry, kind of almost mythical figure. But I really wonder, what was Malcolm, just the man, like?
Well, listen, he was compassionate, he was kind, he was loving, right? He was filled with lots of faith.
Okay.
He was led by his service to God. And so, not quite naturally, he would be a man who would have a profound reaction to injustice,
Okay.
a profound reaction to dogs being sicked on innocent people, right? Who they just want to, they want to enjoy these inalienable rights.
Yeah.
He had a profound reaction to churches being bombed, people's homes being bombed, the lynchings that were occurring. He had a profound reaction to that. And so, yes, he was emotional, and he appeared to be angry when he had a reaction to those kinds of atrocities that were occurring around the world, right? And so it's usually that image that people use to say, look at him, he's an angry man. Well, he was filled with such compassion because he was only in his 20s when the world learned of him, right? And he was 39. I'm old enough to be his mother, I might even be old enough to be his grandmother. I mean, not really, but
but when you think about how young he was when he died.
Sure. And he was compassionate. And so the image that was portrayed of him was inaccurate, and it was false. And so my mother safeguarded this legacy of her husband. She made sure that his daughters knew who he was in his soul. We didn't learn about Malcolm X, the icon, from our mother. We learned about Malcolm, the compassionate, loving, thoughtful, kind, creative, brilliant, visionary.
Have you seen the movie One Night in Miami?
Yes.
So the story of the night we has with Jim Brown, Ali, and Sam Cooke. One of the things that really irked me in that movie was it made Malcolm seem really boring. Like he organized his thing and came with ice cream.
Timid.
And the Malcolm I know was hilarious,
gregarious,
funny, gregarious. Right. And is that more? I think is that more of the image of Malcolm of your father that you have as the playful, funny, like just a bigger personality than we maybe think of.
Yeah, it was just a very kind, loving, dashing man because he was almost 6'5". What presence he had. He was honest. He was righteous. There are a lot of things that he was, and so when I think of my father, I'm so proud, of the man that he was, and then the fact that he was my father, fills me with lots of love and pride. Yeah.
When you got to know Malcolm X, the figure, the political figure, was that surprising to you, or did it fit with what you knew of Malcolm the man?
Again, I was really proud. And courageous, right? And courageous because, again, he served God. And so, when he said, I don't fear anybody, anything, he feared just that relationship with God. And that made him a reliable steward. And so even during COVID, when I did my latest book, The Awakening of Malcolm X, what we discovered is that he was quoted 53.7 thousand times per day. But I heard it was per hour per day, but I'm just going to say per day by young people. And what it says is that, young people were looking for historical figures, and now they got to see, the killings of George Floyd, the killings of all of these horrific killings because we were quarantining and indoors, right? And so we got to see all of these horrific killings, these brutal, senseless, inhumane acts. And young people organized these marches around the world, right? Proclaiming that Black Lives Matter, but they also were quoting Malcolm. And I think, what we had deduced was that they were looking for someone who spoke truth to power, who was reliable, who was authentic. And as a result, they discovered Malcolm. And they realized, aha, this is what he was reacting to. He had a profound reaction to injustice, lynching, and all of these horrific things that challenged one's humanity.
Why is it 100 years after his birth, 60 years after he died? Why is his message still so relevant to those young people today?
Because Malcolm spoke truth, and we know that truth is timeless.
One of the myths I really want to focus on, I do focus on in the book and also in this documentary, is the idea that Malcolm was patriarchal, didn't have anything to say about women, because we always talked about the black man this, and you'll be surprised how many people really would believe that he's kind of a thing for the past because he was so anti-women in some instances. What would you say to that? How is that?
One of the things that my father said is that a society is based on the progress of its women. I mean, so he understood the importance of the woman's role in society. He was inspired so much by his mother, by his big sister, Ella Collins, by his eldest sister, Hilda Little. All of these great relationships that he had with women and the respect that he had for women.
How important was Louise Little in turning Malcolm into the Malcolm that we know today?
Well, I wrote a children's book, Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. And that was based on stories that were shared with my aunts and uncles. The incredible amount of respect and love that he had for his mother. I read some letters at the Schomburg where we have my father's collection, and he says that to his brother, he says, "Your success is my success. My success is your success, and we got this," or the advances or something. I don't know, but it all came from my mother. So he attributes a lot to his mother because his father was lynched when he was 6 years old.
So his mother really was an influence. And downstairs in the center, you have a frieze that shows all the different women who were influenced by Malcolm X.
That's right.
Even Maya Angelou was going to come and work with him before he was killed.
That's right.
And even the organization OAAU had women, female members. Malcolm had such a big place for women. Why do you think it is that there is this myth still? Why is it so prevalent still?
I think there's everything that tries to prevent one from respecting and thereby learning, about his work. Right? And sometimes it's even self-hate or the inability to really appreciate and respect someone of Malcolm's caliber. Right? Because what did he do? He put a mirror up. He put a mirror up to the negative acts of individuals.
He showed America and the world what it is, right? And people don't, and we know today, people don't like to see what the realities of racism are. And Malcolm was one of the best, maybe the best, at actually showing making it plain what those realities of racism.
Racism, sexism, genderism, everything.
All of them. What do you think would be his legacy? I mean, we can't necessarily say what would he say if he was here today, but what is his legacy? What is the most kind of important message from Malcolm there?
Well, believing in the oneness of God, hence the oneness of man, the oneness, of our humanity. When we learn about history, if we go to world history, we learn so much about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And yet scientists, anthropologists, archaeologists have surmised that civilization began on the continent of Africa.
Yes.
So we should also be learning about, the significant contributions that Benin, that Ethiopia, that Mali made to math, science, astronomy, archaeology, architect, just all of these things. And even, in America, where it is the melting pot of the world, that Black history is American history.
Yeah.
And American history also includes Native American history, Asian American history, Latin American history. Our educational textbooks are inaccurate if everyone is not included. And so, it speaks to an opportunity to instilling specific values in our young people, being responsible for the curriculum, the education curriculum that they have. I think that every child deserves an opportunity to know that they're worthy, of self-love, that they're worthy of a quality education, and they're worthy to participate in mainstream society.
Unfortunately, that's probably the opposite of what's happening now with Trump and all of the mandates to get rid of African American studies. It seems like actually learning about Malcolm and other figures from the past will actually be more difficult in the future, unfortunately. Because I think education was such a big part of what Malcolm was striving for, right? One of the things I did want to ask you was, growing up X, I really enjoyed the book, and you've gone on to do great things in your own right, but do you feel a pressure? Did you ever feel a pressure? Malcolm X's daughter, is there a pressure there to be something that maybe you want to be or don't want to be, or maybe?
No, it's not whether I want to be, my mother, raised 6 girls, and she did an incredible job. So it really was about, for example, we learned about the significant contributions that women made, that the African diaspora made, and that Islam made to the world. So we grew up with a very healthy sense of ourselves, solid identity. We didn't rely on others to determine our self-worth. So it means that I am who I am, right? I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. That I am who I am. I'm compassionate, I'm loving, I'm resourceful, and if I see injustice of any kind being afflicted on someone near and dear to me, then I want to try and find a way to resolve it, to address it, to resolve it, right? So I think what's most important is that that I see you as a reflection of me and me as a reflection of you. I love you as much as I love myself, right? Because if I don't learn to love myself, then I could never, be any good to you. And so those are the kinds of values and examples that my mother provided for her daughters.
And you've obviously, you've written the books about Malcolm, you've had the center, so obviously it's been a huge influence and a part of your work that you wanted to give to the world, right, to tell these stories. What, and is that...
I didn't set out to do that.
No,
this
you
is
didn't
just what happened. I did what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do a children's story about Malcolm for children, to open up a book and see a reflection of themselves, and then also learn about the truth of who Malcolm was. I wanted young girls to be able to do the same, to hear what kind of music was out in the 1940s, to see my mother as a reflection of them, that our parents are just in older bodies, but they still are these young people, and just to see what history and life was like in the 40s, what marching and protesting and all of these things, what it was like, self-acceptance, self-love. And so I wrote books primarily because I enjoyed writing books and I was compassionate about, readers. Exa Novel is about a young person running from their identity against the backdrop of Jim Crow. and ultimately discovering himself and committing himself to service.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the work is very valuable. And also the work here, and we're keen to support the work of the Shabazz Centre. Are there plans for the future of the centre and things you want to do?
Oh, absolutely. We're always busy in here. It's not busy right now because you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we have a big event on Friday for my father's 60th memorial.
Yes.
So we'll have chairs, we'll have a stage, we'll have drapes, we have lots of people, we have awards, we have, you know, a reception downstairs, we have musicians, we have speakers. So yeah, we have libations.
Okay.
You know, so we do some really great programs here. And the young lady who's the director of curated events, she always has groups of children, young people. You know, this place is always pretty active.
No, that's great. My kids are actually here with me, and they're going to come up on Friday. We're going to come on Friday to the event.
Okay.
No, it's been really. I mean, it's been really good talking to you. And just, is there anything you'd want to say about your father that you haven't said?
No.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.